All right, so let's look at subtracting mixed numbers. And for the time being, I'm going to take the simple case where you do not need to borrow. Basically, it works like with addition. You change the fraction part of each mixed number to an equivalent fraction with the least common denominator. You subtract the whole number parts together and subtract the fraction parts together. And then from there, you reduce and combine the whole number and fraction to form that final mixed number. So 7 3/5 minus 3 2/5. I have 7 minus 3, which is 4. And I have the 3/5 minus 2/5, which is 1/5. So if I put this together, the 4 and the 1/5 become 4 1/5. 12 4/5 minus 3 7/10. Well, on the one hand, I have the 12 minus 3 is 9. And then we have the 4/5 minus 7/10. The least common denominator is going to be 10. So that means the first fraction I would multiply top and bottom by 2 to get 8/10 minus 7/10. And I end up with 1/10. So I have 9 and the 1/10. I end up with 9 and 1/10 as my final answer. If the fraction part of the first number is smaller than the fraction part of the second, then you'll need to borrow 1 from the whole number part of the first number in order to subtract the fraction parts. So take this 1 and turn it into an improper fraction with the numerator and the denominator matching the common denominator. Then add it to the improper fraction. Then add this improper fraction to the fraction part of the second number. So 19 5/8 minus 5 3/4. On one hand, we have 19 minus 5, which is 14. And then 5/8 minus 3/4. Well, the least common denominator is going to be 8. So I leave the first fraction alone. The second fraction, I'd multiply top and bottom by 2. So this becomes 6/8. And notice that I end up with negative 1/8. So I need to borrow. And what that means is I take 1 from the 14, so now that becomes 13. And then replace that with, replace the 1 with 8/8. So altogether what I have here is I have 13, I have the 8/8, and then I have that minus 1/8. So 13 7/8. For part B, 100 minus 4 1/5. I have the 100 minus 4, but then I also have basically 0 minus 1/5. There's no fraction in the first part, so no fraction, 0 minus 1/5. I end up with negative 1/5. So the first part is 96. I take one of those 95 and write it as 95 5/5. And then what I do is I subtract the 1/5 from the other part, and I end up with 95 4/5. All right, so let's evaluate this expression for the given values of the variables. X minus y, where x is 5 1/3 and y is 4 2/3. So this becomes 5 1/3 minus 4 2/3. So what we have here is we have the 5 minus 4, which is 1. And then we have the 1/3 minus 2/3, which is negative 1/3. So I would need to borrow. I'm going to replace that 1 with 3/3. So ultimately I have 3/3 minus 1/3 is 2/3.